let's go ahead, and I'm just going to start out by jumping in with Isaac here and talking about the biggest mistake you made when starting your business, and kind of just give us a little bit about what that journey looked like when you were starting your business and why that mistake was detrimental for getting everything up and off the ground.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was probably, let's see, I was like 15, 16. I started actually, I didn't start. I took over a failing web development business. There wasn't really anything happening, and they only had a couple of customers, and they weren't reoccurring, and it was just like, it was pretty lame. And so it was basically like starting a new business. And I took it over, and I just kind of just went to town. I just worked hard. I did what most people did, just, the grind, just work really hard. I redesigned a lot of the business, and things were going really well. But and we were very successful and all the great things. But when I look back on it now, when I look at the business model and the things that we were doing there, the potential was just off the charts. Like if I would have learned just this one lesson, which I'll tell you in just a second, I think we could have done 10 times better. I technically did take the business and was able to almost 10x the revenues in 2 or 3 years, which is great. But when I look back now on okay, what could have been our potential if we would have just done this one thing? It's crazy to me. And especially for the longevity of the business. And the one thing is, I didn't start with why. I didn't have a core reason for doing it, right? I saw this as a business venture that would make me money. That's all I saw it as.
So if you don't mind me jumping in real quick, I'm kind of curious. You say you didn't really have a core why you started, but obviously there was something that pushed you to get going, kind of surface level. Is there a reason that this business stuck out to you and you got going even surface level before kind of digging in?
Well, I did see some potential in the business, right? I saw it as a really cool way as a 15-year-old kid to be able to have some decent success, before I became an adult, have some decent cash flow before I left the house, before I, went out into the world. Right? I was obviously, 15, still living with my parents. So I was like, okay, this is a nice, this is a nice way to make some good cash flow. And I saw some potential. I had been thinking about running a business for a long time, even before I was 15. And I saw that and I was like, this would be this is a really cool opportunity. But ultimately the driving force behind it was the money, right? It was that maybe even the financial stability, right? It wasn't just all necessarily just money, but it was, the financial stability and whatnot. But there wasn't a deeper purpose or cause or belief that was driving me to succeed. It was just, I kind of want to be successful here.
So can I ask you, was it something that you just thought would be cool to be designing websites and or was it really anything that would have made you money you would have gotten into, and this just happened to be the opportunity that was in front of you?
Right. That's a tough question. I definitely wouldn't have taken anything that would have made me money. It had to be a business for sure. And I had to feel like I had responsibility over something. I took it over and I was able to get several employees and things like that. And I definitely needed to be something where I could have total control and where I could make sure that this was mine, right? This wasn't a little side gig, or this wasn't necessarily just I wasn't working for someone. I had total control over the situation, and that's really what attracted me. It wasn't necessarily just about the money. It was definitely the control there too. So
you were successful. You said you were successful, even though you didn't have a deeper why.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Can you explain that? How do you mean by that?
Well, I feel like if I had a deeper why, a deeper cause or purpose behind it, you look at some of the most successful companies in the world, and like let's look at Tesla, for example. They are so successful because they have that core desire to do something else beyond the money, beyond the success. They want to completely transform the way that we exist in the world. They want to create a better tomorrow. So they were able to do so much more. For me, on the other hand, I was successful purely because of grit, because of that desire for financial stability, and because I worked around a lot of other people who were successful, and so I knew some secrets to success. But it was just the financial success, right? It wasn't anything beyond financial success. So there was just it was, anyone can make money, but very few people have the ability to be successful. Like there's a slight difference there. Successful is, being able to have a fulfilled life, not just in your business, but in all aspects of your life, right? They all begin to intertwine when you're truly successful. Whereas making money, anyone can make money and still be sad, still not have success in their life. And that's what it really comes down to when you're starting with a why, with a real core purpose, is you have a successful and fulfilled life.
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting too. I mean, that you say that. I mean, obviously you're reflecting back, because you said you were doing that when you were 15, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you were pretty young, and Braxton, you were the same, right? When you got started into business, you were what, 15, 16 when you got started as well?
Yeah. I was 15. My business was actually a little bit different because mine wasn't a service, which I've transitioned into for a few different reasons. But my first business was a product. I was selling products. Not technically my first business, but my first successful business, which could have been way better. It was a fitness company. And for all like terms of how we were doing, I mean, we actually did pretty well. Kind of similar to Isaac. It was, we had a clothing line and we had some supplements, and we were in stores. We were in GNC, we were in Dunham Sports, Hibbett Sports. We had stuff in some different stores, No Limit Nutrition. And so we were doing pretty well. But I think I had two main mistakes, and they kind of coincide. And the first mistake was that we had zero social proof when we started. And I can actually tell you, we went and bought like a shipment of like 500 or 600 shirts when we were starting out. We're muscle cut. They looked really good, but we didn't know 500 people we could sell to. We knew maybe, 20 or 30. And so the shipment of shirts came in, and we were like, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to make all this money. We started selling shirts. We literally sold like 20, and we were like, okay. So now we spent like $4,000 or $5,000 on these shirts, and we hadn't even broken even. We weren't even close. We made a few $100. And so it forced us to have to learn new things. And so we started going to these stores. First one we went to was No Limit Nutrition, this shop that was local for our town. And we walked in and asked if they'd want to, buy some shirts to have in their store so that they could sell them. And they were like, okay, well, how many of you already sold? Right. And so they were looking for social proof that they would sell, which is the correct thing to do, which we did not do. And so then instead of selling shirts that were already accounted for and knowing we could get rid of them, we had a bunch of shirts on backlog. And I actually, funny enough, still have one box of those shirts to this day. Since then, we did a bunch of other things. We had cutoffs and hoodies and some other things, but those shirts actually never totally sold out. And the next time we went and bought hoodies, we only bought like 50 of them, and we sold all of them very, very quick. And then we were able to scale. And the second part that kind of jumps in is because later, when I started helping somebody else with their own business, wanting to sell products, doing something similar, I was able to tell them the mistakes I made. And so the biggest mistake I would say that went into that is not having a mentor and assuming that I knew everything and I could do it myself. Because had I had a mentor, he would have told me, hey, don't be dumb. And like, don't buy 500 shirts if you can't sell 500 shirts tomorrow. And so that's something I started telling people is don't start a business selling something that you couldn't sell tomorrow if you tried. And that was a mistake I made. And I learned real quick. And so now when I start a business, I have social proof and I know people want it. And so it kind of goes into, helping people and being able to mentor them. I didn't have that because I thought I was so smart and I knew how to do it. And I bought so much of these things that I didn't even know if I could sell, banking on, I'm going to be so rich because I'm going to sell 500 shirts,
Hey, I will buy one of your shirts, man.
Hey, well, I still have them. I have a box of larges. I'll make sure you both get a shirt. So,
I need a double XL, please.
Okay, I have some of those probably.
So I'm curious, like, what would you have done to be able to get that social proof right off the bat? Like, how would you get that social proof when you don't really have any?
Yeah, so there's a couple things I do depending on the business I was in. If I was still in products, the way I'd switch it up is I literally post on my Instagram or Snapchat story or on TikTok with a poll with 2 different, styles or 2 different designs, and have everybody vote on which one they think would be the best, which one they'd want to buy. And here's why. Because if I put up a poll and, I have 2 shirts on there, and it's not really to pick a design, I want to know how many people will vote. Right. So if I put up 2 designs and I get 50 votes, then I know there are 50 people who are interested in those shirts and they're invested because now they feel like they were part of the process. Right. And so I do that just to get, 50 people said they'd buy shirts. You know what? I'm only going to order 30 because I can guarantee sell them. And so then I don't have to worry about having anything left over. I'll get the money coming in. If I was selling a service, right, like website development or coaching or consulting of any kind, I would start reaching out to people in the niche that I'm in, right? So let's say I do marketing consulting. I'd start reaching out to companies and asking what kind of problems they run into with marketing, not even to try and sell them. What kind of problems do you run into? How much does that cost you? What would you want to see different? If someone came in and offered you this, would you buy it? Would you buy it at this price? And if you do surveys like that, if you can talk to, 50, 100 people, and you could do that over email in a couple days and figure out, I want to do marketing consulting, and I have 25 replies of people saying they'll buy. So now I have the social proof knowing I could start. That's what I do.
Yeah. Well, you actually bring up a really good point. I don't know, Jarom, if you wanted to jump in there, but you actually bring up a really good point. And I know, Jarom, you've done a lot of social media stuff and you're really, really good at it. Can you tell us like kind of some of the strategies that you've used to kind of get social media going there? Because it sounds to me like a lot of social proof comes from the social media, right, Braxton?
Nowadays, yeah. Nowadays, a lot of it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, gosh, this day and age, it's so easy to like immediately get that feedback right away. Like it's so easy, and then you can get started right away once you get that, which is super nice, So it makes it a lot more easier. The barrier to entry is a lot lower. Anyone can start. And so especially with social media, you don't have to, I guess, be an expert. You can be living out of your basement, or you could be living wherever. As long as you have Wi-Fi and you have a phone, you can make money, which is pretty cool. But it's also, and this is one of my mistakes, is you can't just go in with a good, happy, positive attitude, knowing with a lot of confidence and thinking you're going to make a lot of money. Like, you just can't do that. You have to back it up with skill. You have to back it up with learning and growing and failing and making mistakes and seeing that. Because I'll tell you, I was excited at the very beginning. Obviously, all of us were. When you start a business, it's super exhilarating. You're super excited.
Yeah.
You want to see this money. You want to help people. But the real thing is you probably lack skills to do so, right? Yeah. And so that's exactly what I did. And Stephen R. Covey talks about this in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talks about, if you want to be a really good piano player, you can't just you can't just expect yourself to be at concert level, sitting down to impress your friends right away with merely a good, positive attitude, self-confidence, and, maybe a little bit of research, right? It just doesn't work like that. You can't just sit down and start playing all this beautiful music, right? It takes so much time. You have to backtrack and you have to do all these things that seemingly are boring, but they're necessary. And so I guess in regards to social media, you can sit and do trial and error, and that's what I did. But if you really sit down and really just research and specifically look at what other people are doing, there's tons of successful people out there, and you look at those people and you start to mimic what they're doing, and you copy how they were able to be so successful, how they made so many viral videos, what did their profile look like, what, even just down to what they're saying on their captions, what type of music are they using, right? All those little things, they start to add up once you have that mindset, that kind of perspective of like, what are they doing? How are they getting there? Instead of you just consuming, you're producing, right? It's whole mindset.
I'm kind of intrigued because I think all of us, even, and I like to kind of hear your thoughts on this, Jarom, but it's like all of us are really big on staying positive, obviously, because things aren't going to go well 100% of the time. There's a video that I love where they talk about, it's actually in a few books too, but they talk about the cycle of a business, right? And you go in with like these high expectations and things get pretty good. And then you meet this moment where you're like, man, is this going to work? Like, I don't know. And then things only get worse. And it's when you push through that things actually start to work and get better and you can make money. But that is the time that it takes to learn the skill and actually be really good at what you do. So I'm curious, Jarom, what part do you think having a positive mindset plays in starting a business and in learning the skill?
Yeah. I mean, it really is everything, but you can't focus merely on that, if that makes sense. You have to have it. I think it's necessary. And like you were saying, because there's so many failures along the way that are necessary, that need to happen before you become successful. And so, like you're saying, and I've heard it there before too, like the things that you do to fuel you, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying, Boswell, Isaac, about your why, like going back to that, like what is that thing that's going to be driving you? Because if it's not strong, you're probably not going to be positive, right? You're not going to be happy, excited about it, right? Because as soon as that first failure comes, you're just going to want to go back to your comfort zone, right? You're going to want to go back to square one, right? And find what's going to be comfortable for you. But entrepreneurship and everything that you do in business is putting you outside of your comfort zone little by little, every step of the way.
And it should be. And it should be.
And absolutely should be. So it's all about that. You have to stay positive through it all the time, because no one else is rooting for you more than yourself, than you.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because your guys' actually go together very, very well. But just to kind of connect, I think some of all of our ideas that we're talking about, one of the main things, obviously, I was trying to touch on was having a mentor, right? And having someone who's done it. And I think any good mentor will tell you pretty much exactly what Jarom told you. There's a quote that I love, and I'm going to butcher. I don't know exactly how it goes, but it's something along the lines of having the desire for something doesn't warrant you having that thing, right? Having the desire to have money doesn't mean you deserve money. It means that you should have a desire to fail and fail quickly so that you can learn and get better. And I think one of the easiest ways to learn that and find that is find a mentor who has a successful business and figure out why they started. Ask them why, ask them how many times they failed. If someone is really honest with you, I'll tell you, for every successful venture I've started, I probably have 4 failures under my belt for each of them, and I'm sure you guys could agree. It's like, I have failed at so many things time and time and time again. And that's the only reason that I can do the things that I do today successfully, because I can tell people how not to do that and fast track them to the success. Right. So I'm kind of curious, Isaac, did you have many mentors when you were getting started? You did say you were surrounded by some pretty successful people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I had some fantastic mentors. One of my best experiences, well, my dad is an entrepreneur, so he was definitely a huge mentor. But like not family related. I had this. I went to this one business conference with his. I don't even know how much this guy's worth. His name's Perry Marshall. If you've ever heard of the 80-20 principle, in sales and marketing, he's kind of the guy who he didn't necessarily create it, but he's definitely the guy who promoted it and like made it a big deal. So this guy is worth just hundreds of millions. You know, he's very, 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 very successful, very wealthy. And I went to a whole bunch of conferences with him, and my dad were really good friends, and so he was a huge mentor for me. But they're super important, those mentors. And they can really help you to find your why, to have that positive attitude, to help you when you're down, to show you a different perspective. And I feel like that's kind of a lot of things that we've been talking about tonight. It's like you just got to get the mental and emotional state of entrepreneurship is very important, very crucial to success. If you don't have the mental stamina to survive during the difficult times, then you probably won't. So,
Right. Definitely.
yeah. But Jarom, do you have any other concluding thoughts before we wrap up?
Gosh, I mean, we could keep going here for a
I
while.
know, it's like, I know,
But
we could talk for
I'll just
forever.
leave with this. I think with everything that you do, I guess we'll jump off of the mentor things, and maybe we could talk about this for a sec too. But because Braxton, you mentioned that if we were mentors now, when we were explaining to some of these people, some of these entrepreneurs right now getting started, you were explaining what not to do, and maybe they take your advice or maybe they don't. Do you think that, and these are just thoughts that are coming to me right now, but do you think that they would have to go through those mistakes to become successful, or do you think they really could fast track those mistakes and be just as successful? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think there definitely is a way to fast track mistakes. There's a great quote that I love, and it's that a smart person will always learn from their own mistakes, but a wise person can always learn from the mistakes of others. And so I think obviously people don't have to take my advice, and they could be still very, very successful. There's a million different ways you could go about it. There's not just one route to doing it, but I think pretty consistently, and I'm sure you guys would agree with me, principles across business are pretty similar, right? Whatever business you're going into, like the principles of making it successful stay pretty consistent. And so I think there's always things you're going to run into, and there's a lot of mistakes with mentors that I've had where they told me like I was going to do something. They're like, hey, don't do that. And I don't listen to them just because they said, hey, don't do that. But they can explain why, explain that they made the mistake, what it did. And then it's like, I can have the understanding of why that would be a bad idea without having to go through it myself. Yeah. And so today, when I coach people and when I mentor people and when I help them with their businesses, I always make a point to explain the why, right? Why you do something and why you don't do it. Because I can tell you from personal and, past experiences that there are certain reasons I do and don't do specific things. And as long as you have the understanding, then you get the fast track, because you'll have to understand it one way or another, either because you took months of failing and had to grasp that concept, or because somebody told you and could explain it to you, and then you get it in a couple hours and you're able to, get going. So I really do think so. And those are actually kind of my closing thoughts. I'd love to pitch it back to you guys, but that's kind of my closing thoughts. Is there definitely is a way to fast track the mistakes. Being able to find your why, being able to stay motivated, being able to fail and fail fast and learn. And part of that comes from being teachable and having a mentor who actually understands. So,
I love that.
And I think it's important too. everyone's route, everyone's journey is completely different.
Mhm.
I think, I mean, you guys would agree, I'm sure. We look up to all these different business professionals and super successful entrepreneurs and business owners, and we look at them and maybe we want to be like them, but our route, our journey, our lives are completely different. The way that they found their success is going to be different than our success. And for those listening, you know, it's the same. Everyone's journey is different. And so, yes, you need to learn the skills and become as successful as you can, but it's going to look different for everyone. And everyone's different. You have different skills, you have different talents, you have different abilities, different interests, everything, right? And so you have to play off of those to see what you can do, because everyone has a different role and different purpose in life as well. Like different things, a different calling to fulfill, different people to help, and things like that. So that's what I'd leave it at.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying there. Everyone has their own, or should have their own reason why they do what they do. You know, why do they get out of bed every morning? Why do they get to work? Why do they serve people? Why do they help people in their businesses? And the hope is that ultimately the hope is that it's beyond just the money. It's beyond just the accolades and the fame and whatever it might be. And I think that's a big part of why you need those mentors and those people in your lives. They're the people that can be your biggest support to remind you of why you do the things that you do. And that is the path to true success in your life, true fulfillment in your life, is when you really wake up every single morning and you say, this is why I do the things that I do. This is why I help people. This is why I do whatnot. And if you can do that, your business will be fantastically successful. So, but I honestly think that's a good place to stop. What do you guys say?
Yeah, I think obviously if anybody who had the opportunity to listen to this, if any of you are interested in, you know, getting some of that mentorship and learning, you know, the mistakes we made and being able to fast track some of that success, we'll go ahead and leave a link in the comments below. We'll probably leave our socials as well. Feel free to click on that and shoot us a message. We'd love to help out in any way we can. So
yeah,
feel
absolutely.
free to do that. And also thank you guys so much for hopping on. So
yeah, absolutely. This has been fantastic, and I hope you're able to get some good stuff out of this.
Till next time.
Till next time.
Next time. See you guys.